Sienna had always known the moment would come, but she never imagined the reckoning would be this brutal, this sudden, this humiliating, and this utterly soul-shattering. As the night Allie finally cornered her in the dimly lit loft, her voice trembling with rage and heartbreak as she whispered, "Take it off, Sienna, take it off now," forcing Sienna into a panic so intense she could barely breathe, let alone think, her hands shaking violently as she tried desperately to keep her mask, both the literal disguise and the emotional facade, fastened to her face, because she knew that once Allie ripped it away, once the truth spilled out, there was no going back, no forgiveness, no protection, no mercy, only the full weight of the lies, the manipulations, and the catastrophic consequences she had run from for months, maybe even years. Noah arrived right at the worst possible moment, right when Sienna's final shield was being torn away by Allie's trembling hands, and the look on his face was one that would haunt Sienna forever, wide-eyed horror, disbelief, and the kind of disappointment that felt sharper than any blade. "Allie, stop!" Noah shouted, breathless as he rushed across the room, but he was too late, helpless to prevent the truth from exploding in his face as Allie finally yanked the mask away and flung it across the floor, revealing Sienna's bare face streaked with tears, desperation, and the raw terror of someone who knew she had run out of excuses. Noah staggered back like he'd been punched, gripping the edge of the table to keep himself from collapsing, his breath coming out in sharp, disoriented bursts as he stared at Sienna like he didn't recognize the woman he had trusted with his heart, his life, his future. Allie's voice cracked as she said, "Tell him everything, Sienna. Tell him who you really are. Tell him what you did. Tell him what you've been hiding since the moment you stepped foot into his life." And that was when Sienna completely fell apart, the sobs tearing out of her chest so violently that she couldn't speak at first, choking on the truth she never wanted to say out loud, but Noah, shaking and pale, demanded it anyway, "Stop lying and just say it." A scream so raw and broken that even Allie flinched, her anger softening into pity for just a moment as she watched the man she once loved crumble under the weight of Sienna's silence. Sienna's voice finally cracked through the sobs as she whispered the truth, the horrifying truth she had been running from since the day she met Noah, that she wasn't the woman she claimed to be, that her past was darker than she ever admitted, that she had been living under a false name because her real identity was tied to crimes, secrets, and betrayals Noah couldn't even imagine, and worst of all, she had known something devastating about Noah long before she ever let herself fall for him. Noah froze, the blood draining from his face completely as he asked, What do you mean?" And Sienna's knees buckled as she confessed the part she feared would destroy him most. She had been involved with someone connected to Noah's past, someone who had manipulated and used her as a pawn to get close to the Newman family, and she had kept the truth hidden even after she fell genuinely, desperately in love with him. The room felt like it tilted as Noah's breath hitched, his heartbreak escalating into fury as he shouted, "How could you do this to me? To my family? To everyone?" His voice cracked on the last word, the pain too thick to swallow, and then he broke, utterly and violently, bursting into tears in a way that ripped the air clean out of the room, collapsing against the wall as he tried to process the reality that the woman he loved, the woman he defended, the woman he believed in when no one else did, had been lying to him since the very first day. Sienna crawled toward him, sobbing as she tried to explain that she was terrified, that she wanted to tell him but couldn't, that she'd been threatened, that she was trying to protect him from the very man who set her on this path. But Noah shoved her hand away, shouting through the tears, no more lies. No more half-truths. Just tell me what you did." His voice was hoarse, shredded by betrayal, and Sienna finally told him the darkest part of all, that the man who had forced her into this twisted double life, the one who manipulated her into getting close to Noah, the one who promised to destroy her if she disobeyed, was someone Noah knew intimately, someone from his past whose obsession with the Newman family had spiraled out of control, and that Sienna had been the bait, the spy, the weapon used to gather information about Noah, about Sharon, about Nick, about everything. Noah's face collapsed into disbelief, his body shaking as he whispered, No, not him," but Sienna nodded through her tears, confirming the unthinkable, the betrayal that cut so deep Noah felt like he couldn't breathe, like the ground beneath him had disappeared. Allie, despite everything, put a hand on Noah's shoulder, grounding him as he sobbed, his hands covering his face as the truth sank in, Sienna had been lying from the moment she arrived. And even though she claimed she loved him, even though she insisted she was forced into it, the damage was irreparable. Sienna's cries became frantic as she begged him to listen, to see that she was done hiding, that she wanted to protect him now, that she wanted to make it right, but Noah was too shattered, too blinded by betrayal and heartbreak to hear anything past the ringing in his ears. He screamed again, "Why didn't you just tell me? I would have helped you. I would have protected you," but Sienna shook her head violently, insisting she couldn't risk his life, that the man controlling her had already threatened Noah once, that she couldn't live with his blood on her hands, but Noah saw it differently. He only saw the lies, the manipulation, the fact that he had poured his heart into someone who had been hiding a monster behind her back the whole time. The moment spiraled into something even worse as ALLIE revealed the final piece, the evidence she had found that exposed Sienna's real identity, a document, a photo, a name Noah recognized instantly, a revelation so explosive he fell to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably as the horrifying truth clicked into place. Sienna reached for him one last time, begging for forgiveness, but Noah backed away like her touch burned him, whispering, "I don't even know who you are," his voice barely audible, trembling with devastation as he confronted the reality that the woman he loved had never truly existed. And as Sienna collapsed, sobbing and shaking on the floor, ALLIE stared between them, torn between rage and pity, knowing that nothing about this night would ever be forgotten, that the unmasking had changed everything, destroyed everything, and set off a chain reaction that would only grow darker from here. Noah's tears kept falling, his chest heaving, his heart shattered beyond repair, as he whispered again and again, "Why did you lie to me? Why?" But no answer Sienna could give would ever be enough, not when the truth had already broken him completely, not when the unmasking had revealed a secret so terrifying it would haunt all of them for the rest of their lives. Noah stayed frozen on the ground long after the initial shock broke through him, his entire body trembling as if the truth ALLIE exposed had cracked his spine in half, and the room felt suffocatingly small, almost claustrophobic, as Sienna crawled just a little closer, not enough to touch him, because she knew he would recoil again, but close enough that she prayed he could at least feel her desperation radiating off her like heat, her hands shaking violently as she whispered, "Noah, please. I never meant for this to happen," but her words only made him press his palms harder against his face, smothering another wave of sobs that ripped through him in jagged, uneven gasps, the kind that made his chest stutter with pain. ALLIE stood back now, no longer screaming, no longer pushing, just watching the two of them like she had opened a door she wasn't sure she should have, her arms folded tightly across her chest as she tried to steady her own breathing because seeing Noah like this, broken, grief-stricken, destroyed, ignited something inside her that flickered violently between guilt and vindication, a twisted blend that made her jaw clench as she finally said, "He deserved the truth, Sienna. He deserved it a long time ago." Sienna's head dropped, her hair falling over her tear-soaked face as she whispered, "I know. I know I hurt him. I know I ruined everything, but I was trying to protect him." Noah lifted his head at that, his eyes red and swollen, his voice fractured into pieces as he snapped, "Protect me? By lying to me? By letting somebody use you to get to my family? By pretending to love me while hiding the truth about who you are?" Each question landed like a blow, Sienna's expression crumbling even further as she tried to form a response, but Noah cut her off with another broken cry, "You should have told me the second you walked into my life." Sienna shook her head frantically, wiping the tears with the back of her hand even though they kept coming, dripping down her chin and onto her trembling knees. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He told me he'd kill you if I ever said anything, he told me I'd be responsible for your death. I couldn't risk that. I couldn't risk you." Noah let out a bitter, cracked laugh, one so painful that even ALLIE's eyes softened in sympathy. "Risk me?" Noah choked out. "I was already at risk the moment you chose to keep his secret. You let him into my world because you let him use you. You let him watch me, track me, study me, my life, Sienna. You should have trusted me. You should have given me the chance to fight for both of us." Sienna, shaking uncontrollably now, reached out again, her voice slicing through the chaos like fragile glass. "I didn't know how to get out," she said, her voice trembling and small. Every step I took toward you was real. Everything I felt was real. But everything around me, everything behind me, was a prison. Noah's lips parted, something flickering in his expression for just a second, empathy, maybe, or the faint shadow of the love he once felt, but then he shook his head sharply, fury taking its place. No, he whispered. No, you don't get to say that. You don't get to act like you were the victim when the truth is, you chose this. You chose to walk into my life with lies already loaded in your pockets. Sienna cried harder, collapsing fully onto the floor now, unable to stay upright under the weight of his rage and heartbreak, her hands pressed over her mouth as she tried to stop the sobs from spilling out any louder, but they came anyway, raw, muffled, violent. Allie stepped closer to Noah, placing a steady hand on his back, grounding him as she murmured, "Noah, breathe, just breathe," and though he didn't turn to her, he felt the silent strength she offered, like a lifeline amid the storm ripping him apart. It was then that Allie took a deep breath and finally revealed the part she hadn't said yet, the part she knew would blow the last remnants of peace to pieces. "There's more," she whispered. Sienna's head snapped up instantly, terror flashing in her eyes. "Allie, don't, please," but Noah, already drowning in betrayal, demanded, "More?" What else could she possibly have been hiding? Allie hesitated for a moment, her eyes shifting between Noah's fragile expression and Sienna's horrified one before she said, "She wasn't just hiding her identity. She wasn't just hiding the man who sent her. She was hiding what she gave him." The room went dead silent. Noah blinked, stunned into stillness. "What she gave him?" he repeated slowly, confusion and fear tightening in his voice. Sienna shook her head violently, crawling forward, begging, pleading, and "Oh, Noah, please, don't listen, it's not what you think," but Allie, her voice steady and ice-cold, continued anyway. "She gave him information." Noah's breath froze in his chest. Allie didn't stop. "She gave him access." Noah's heart slammed painfully in his ribs. Allie delivered the blow. "She gave him a way into the Newman systems." Sienna broke completely then, letting out a scream so sharp and agonized it cut through the room like a knife, her hands flying to her head as if she could physically hold the truth in, as if she could stop the words from making it into Noah's ears. Noah felt like the ground had ripped open beneath him, his breathing turning shallow, panicked, as he whispered, You didn't give him access to my family's files. Tell me you didn't let him near Newman Media. Tell me you didn't touch anything related to my family's legacy." Sienna crawled toward him again, sobbing uncontrollably as she pressed her forehead to the floor. "I didn't mean to," she screamed. "He tricked me. He said it was something else, he said it was nothing harmful, he said it was just a way to protect me, but I swear, Noah, I swear on everything I love, I didn't know what it was until it was too late." Noah felt his chest cave in, his hands shaking as he braced himself against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor again, staring at nothing, tears streaming silently down his face as the truth consumed him like wildfire. "My God," he whispered, his voice barely there. "You let him inside my family's world, you let him inside everything we've tried to protect." Sienna nodded frantically, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "I'm sorry, Noah. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to undo it. Please, please believe me." Allie knelt beside Noah now, her voice soft but firm. "This isn't just about lies anymore," she said. "This is about danger. Real danger. And Noah, you need to tell your family before it gets worse." At that, Noah's entire body jerked as if someone had slapped him. "My family," he whispered. His eyes filled with fresh horror. He could be using all of this right now. He could be watching. He could be planning something even bigger. Allie nodded grimly. "That's why we have to act fast." Sienna let out a strangled cry, reaching for Noah's hand even though she knew he wouldn't take it. "Please, don't turn me over to them," she begged. "If they find out what I did, what I allowed, they'll destroy me. Noah, please, I only ever wanted to protect you." Noah snapped. The pain, the fear, the betrayal, It all collided into one explosive outburst as he shouted, "If you wanted to protect me, you would have told me the truth." Sienna collapsed again, sobbing so violently she could barely breathe, her voice cracking as she whispered, "I love you." Noah froze, not out of affection, but out of devastation so deep it numbed him. Slowly, painfully, he turned his head toward her, his face streaked with tears, his voice hollow, empty, shattered. "You don't get to say that right now." Sienna broke again, curling into herself on the floor, shaking uncontrollably, whispering his name like a prayer already denied. Allie put a hand on Noah's arm, pulling him gently to his feet. "Come on," she murmured. "We need to get out of here. We need to tell Victor. We need to tell Nick. We need to tell Sharon. This is bigger than all of us." Noah hesitated, his heart tearing itself apart as he looked at Sienna, still sobbing, still broken, still begging, but the truth was undeniable, and with one last, excruciating breath, he whispered, "I can't stay here." Sienna's scream echoed through the loft as Noah turned away, his heart breaking with every step he took toward the door, Allie supporting him when his legs nearly gave out, the two of them disappearing into the cold night as Sienna's sobs filled the silence behind them. And as the door slammed shut, leaving Sienna alone with her guilt, her terror, and the consequences she could no longer outrun, she whispered the one sentence that would change everything, "He's coming, and none of you are ready." Sienna's whisper, "He's coming, and none of you are ready," hung in the air long after Noah and Allie slammed the door behind them, echoing through the empty loft like a curse that seemed to vibrate through the walls themselves, leaving Sienna trembling on the cold floor, her breath hitching in short, painful bursts as she tried to process the reality that the man she once feared, the man she once obeyed, the man she once believed she could outrun, was now closer than ever and fully aware that she had failed him. Her hands shook so violently she could barely lift herself off the ground, but she forced herself up anyway, gripping the edge of the table as she gasped for air, her mind racing with the horrifying thought that Noah, already shattered and spiraling, was about to walk straight back into the exact danger she had tried so desperately to keep him away from. Meanwhile, Noah and Allie moved quickly through the hallway outside, Noah barely able to stand without leaning on her, his tears drying in streaks across his face as the cold air hit him, grounding him just enough for panic to take over. He stopped halfway down the stairs, gripping the railing so tightly his knuckles turned white as he whispered, "This is my fault. I brought her here. I let her into my life," and Allie, despite everything she felt toward Sienna, anger, disgust, triumph, still placed a gentle hand on his arm and murmured, "No, Noah. She made her choices. She lied. She put you in danger. Don't carry her mistakes like they're your own." But Noah shook his head, his voice cracking as he insisted, "But I loved her, Allie. I defended her. I chose her when everyone told me I was wrong," and the grief in his voice was so raw that Allie felt her own chest tighten, because no matter how furious she had been, no matter how much she believed Sienna deserved to be exposed, watching Noah crumble like this hurt in a way she hadn't expected. They made it outside into the night, the air thick with December cold, and Noah nearly collapsed against the building, pressing his forehead against the brick as he tried to steady his breathing, but then his phone buzzed in his pocket, a sound so sharp he flinched, and when he pulled it out, his heart dropped even further. It was Victor. 2 missed calls. 1 text, "Call me. Urgent." Noah's voice trembled as he read it aloud, and Allie felt the hair on her arms rise, because the timing was too precise, too sharp, too much like a warning sign pulsing in the dark. "Noah," she whispered carefully, "he knows something's wrong." Noah stared at the screen, his stomach twisting painfully as he whispered, "He always knows," and for a brief moment he considered lying, just for a second, just to buy himself time, but Allie grabbed his wrist firmly and said, "No more lies. No more secrets. If that man is coming after you and the Newmans, Victor needs to know right now." Noah swallowed hard, nodding, though fear tightened every muscle in his body, and together they rushed toward Allie's car, their footsteps echoing across the empty street as Noah finally dialed his grandfather's number with shaking hands. Victor answered on the first ring, his voice low and clipped with tension, "Noah. Where are you?" Noah opened his mouth, but the words caught in his throat, so Allie snatched the phone gently but firmly, saying, "Mr. Newman, it's Allie. Something's happened. We're on our way." Victor's tone sharpened. "What happened?" And Allie, knowing this wasn't a conversation she could have over the phone, simply said, "It's serious. And dangerous. And it involves Sienna." There was a pause, a deadly, thunderous pause, before Victor replied, "Get to the ranch. Now." As Allie drove them through the dark streets, Noah stared out the window, silent tears rolling down his cheeks as replay after replay of Sienna's confession looped through his mind, her sobs, her shaking, her pleas, her confessions, the truth about the access she gave the man who had sent her. He felt sick, hollow, terrified, and yet a thin strand of worry for Sienna still tugged painfully at his ribs, as if some part of him refused to fully stop caring no matter how much she had hurt him. Allie glanced at him, her expression softening as she whispered, "I know it's hard. I know you loved her, but Noah, she put a target on your back." Noah didn't respond, his mind too fogged with grief and disbelief, but deep inside he knew she was right. Back at the loft, Sienna stumbled toward the window, wiping her tears with trembling fingers as she peered out into the alley below, because she could feel it, she could sense him, the man who had controlled her life for so long, the man who had forced her into Noah's world, the man whose threats weren't empty. She whispered his name under her breath, her voice barely a breath, "Don't do this, please," but there was no answer, only the eerie stillness of the night. She backed away from the window, panic flooding her veins as she grabbed her bag, her coat, anything she could find, because she knew she couldn't stay here, not after Noah found out, not after